2.5, 1, 0. Now you're live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Launch Nocode podcast. I'm Natalie, your host. And today with me, I have the Build in Public guy, the guy that we've all been waiting for, KP, also director of BeOnDeck Fellowship for Nocode. So hi, KP. How are you doing?
Hello. Hey, Natalie. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I think everybody's been waiting for this moment for you to sort of come on so they could be asking some questions. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what everybody has to come up with following this podcast. So I ask everybody a similar question in terms of how you got into the no-code space and what was your journey here? How did you end up in this bubble that we are now calling no-code?
That's a great question. So it goes back to, I think, 3-4 years ago, where for a lot of the last decade, I was soul searching, figuring out like where do I belong in terms of the tech community, and I had quite a streak of frustrating years in the beginning, where because I was not a developer, and I had so many ideas, and I had these like mini apps I want to create. And I had these like interesting products or platforms I wanted to build and experiment, but I had to rely heavily on developers or dev shops, offshore agencies, and it got very expensive. I even burnt my fingers in hiring an offshore agency, and like the scope which we started was not what we ended up with, and it was scope creep all over the place, and it was so hard to offshore outsource the most essential vital element of bringing an idea to life, which is building. And I realized that at one point in 2018 that it is time that I have to take action. I have to become a builder. I have to let go of this idea person identity and become a builder. And it felt like after all these years of wasting time and not really having anything to prove or anything to it just inspired me. My own rock bottom inspired me to say, screw it. I'm going to take the matter into my hands and become a builder, become a maker. And I became active on Twitter in 2018, that around October. Ben Tossell, and like you've seen a lot of excitement in the no-code space. And I realized that that's something that was a ramp for me to get into being a builder, because I didn't know how to code. And so I remember in 5 days, I built my first MVP using Airtable and another tool called Table to Site. And I built it and shipped it on Product Hunt. It felt like top of the world, and I never looked back.
Amazing. I think that's almost every no-coder's dream, is to be able to do that, to be able to build something into one day, be able to launch it on Product Hunt. I know that's something that's in my mind of one day being able to do. And I think a lot of us can relate to that frustration that we want to be we've got that idea mindset, we've got the builder mindset, but we didn't necessarily have the skills to be able to implement those. But the no-code, low-code world is changing that. It's making things possible that we never thought were possible before. And it's just so very exciting.
Can I expand on one thing you touched on, and we can switch to our second question? I love that you mentioned the word mindset. So much of my journey was really clarifying my own mindset, because I had to let go of a lot of my internal limiting beliefs around who gets to be a builder, who decides who can be a builder, who decides who can create things, and a lot of it for me was like, oh, there's these magical people, mythical creatures who create these things, and I'm just a consumer. And for a lot of time, I was suffering from this sort of, it's not for me mentality. And then until, like I said, 3-4 years ago, where I was reading great books, I was reading good content, I guess, it just hit me. If you have the mindset, you need to develop the most important ingredient right next to the mindset, called the muscle. And it's like a lot of people want to be fit, but they have the mindset of a healthy person, but they don't have the muscle of the healthy person. So a lot of my no-code journey in early days was not even to be the Build a Public guy or to join OnDeck one day. My entire focus was just to build a builder muscle. Can I create enough mini dumb apps that sound bad or eat whatever, but not judge myself and just keep putting in these reps and sets and create that muscle. Because when you combine the mindset with the muscle, now you have, a strong foundation that now you can plant a great idea and then it'll take off because you can bring it to life yourself. So
for sure. And I think that's what we are really as makers. We just have the builder mindset, and we are just going about trying to find the best way for us to build, which I suppose nicely segues onto my next discussion about, what tools should builders choose and why should they choose them? Because I think we all have a slightly different journey of the stack that we choose to make our products. So what about you, KP? What tools did you start with?
I actually started with tools that were very easy to create and ship products in, and it was partly because I was being very authentic and honest to my journey, and I knew that there were so many things that I don't know in the no-code space. So my goal was not to go into no-code and just be the know-it-all, like go around all these tools, try all the tutorials, like know about everything superficially. My goal was, what can I pick and choose to build and ship something small? And the focus is on small. I always wanted to, in the beginning, ship something that was small, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, not more than that. So my stack was initially just Airtable, which was very easy to pick up, Card, which is a very easy landing page builder, and Table to Site at the time. And now there's alternatives like Pori.io, Softer.io, which are basically like lightweight front-end platforms that are built on top of Airtable. So that was my go-to stack in the beginning, and I shipped really simple directories, content-based listing sites, and I think I staggered my way like a step function, and built very simple things in the beginning, some moderately complex. After 3-4 projects, I started picking up on Webflow, and I used the Zapier Integromat, a little bit, and then finally graduated to Bubble. And I built 2 things on Bubble, and they took I think one of them took 15-20 days, the other one took slightly longer. But Bubble definitely is a very sophisticated, powerful, almost a full stack platform. And I would say you don't want to go into Bubble that way. You want to start with get some micro wins under your belt, and then graduate to Bubble.
That's really interesting. I think a few of us have gone through that journey where we've kind of found a tool that's helped us and then thought, what's a slightly more complex tool that we can now go and work with? And then, yes, people seem to be moving more and more towards Bubble at the end of their journey, or some people are taking it on right at the beginning. But yeah, either way.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's the tool, the worst tool is the one that you use but you can't ship anything in. The best tool is the one that allows you to ship something fast and iterate and learn. So to me, no code or any of these tools are basically literally tools. They're literally means to an end. The end is learning. It's about becoming a better builder, and the tools are the means that get you there.
For sure. I think another question I have, just reflecting on what you said about your build time, I've always been intrigued. When you count these days, are these like full days that you've worked on in a row, back to back, getting a product shipped? Are these kind of like split up days over a few months? Because I'm always interested about how builders actually build.
That's a great question. These were, I mean, at the time I had a full-time job that was not in no code. And so these were basically like early mornings, late nights, 2 hours here and there through the day, gaps on weekends. And so it's basically the answer to the first one, which is my first ever no-code project, was dothingsthatdon'tscale.com is still around. That I literally built on a 5-day, I think 5-day or 6-day stretch. I decided I'm going to go live on a certain date, and I worked backwards about from there. And I still had a full-time job. I still went to work and did my normal things, and still it's the Parkinson's law, right? I don't know if you've heard of it. It's basically time occupies all the space that you allow it to occupy. So I mean, the work occupies all the time that there is. So it's you can be much more efficient when you have a set deadline in your mind. But I wouldn't use it to like weaponize your piece, right? Don't make it like super, like stressful. Make it fun. Have something realistic and not like crazy.
Sure. So you did that 5-day intense build, but the ones that took
Right.
more like 15, 20 days,
Right.
were those things spread over a few months? Because I think it's important that we sort of share with listeners like
Yeah.
the reality of how we
Yeah.
build, rather than, because I
There
think
were.
sometimes we can have that perspective that someone's just made something in 15 days, in 2 weeks launched it. And I don't know how true that is.
Yeah. I mean, I think some projects took longer. And in fact, they were spread out a little bit. But one thing I remember about my journey, and even now, is that when I was being a builder, an active builder, and I remember every day I woke up and I had this, like, there were so many micro habits I developed through the day, which I encourage others to do it their own way. But that reminded me and sort of reinforced the identity I wanted to become, wanted to be a builder. So every day, even if I couldn't show anything to my Twitter audience or to product hunt, I woke up and I had something that I was doing. It could be changing the header a little bit, or changing the footer, learning a new Zapier zap about connecting two different apps. But I was learning, and those 2 years of intense learning, I think, was spread out sporadically. Yes, I took breaks. I had a great Christmas back to back, and I had like my birthday breaks and all these life things that I had. I got married in the mix, but the overall focus of, hey, I wanted to be a better builder, and I'm going to use my time to do that, has never lost. I never felt like I was off the sort of the terrain, and a lot of that I attribute to my accountability partners. I had been part of this 0 to 1 mastermind group that I created in Atlanta. Now it's global, but that group, every Friday at 4 p.m. we met for, I think, 18. That gave me a little bit of an anchor. So if I veered off so much of my main highway, there was that group who would say, hey, how's your week going? What did you ship? And that helped me so much to stay on track.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Sharath and Wit, who both have been on this podcast, mentioned your group as well. So, and I've actually been like looking forward to hearing you talk about it, because you did found that. And so how did you turn that community from something that was so local suddenly into something that was global? And does it still exist?
It still exists, and then I passed the reins to Edmund Amoye, who I think you should invite and chat with him at some point too. He's amazing, and I felt that he was more suited to lead it now, given that I'm now hands-on, fully busy with BeOnDeck and ODNC. But I think it was one of those things that was so much of labor, sweat, and tears in the beginning, and it just got easier and easier with more amazing people in it. So in the beginning, I remember my fun story about it was like I felt that I was going to all these tech meetups in Atlanta, and all of them felt so transactional. Like, what's in it for me? What's in it for you? Like, here's my business card. Here's your business card. Like, hit me up on LinkedIn. And I hated that. I hated the transactional nature of so many of these big 400 people meetups. So I almost wanted to create an inverse of it, which is intimate, very low key, casual, authentic community of people coming together. But I needed an anchor. Like, why would these people come together? And I couldn't find an anchor. And most of the times, like even these big meetups, it's very like loosey goosey, and there was no like sort of shared belief or shared anchor. So for me, 0 to 1 was just a name I made up. But basically, the anchor was all of us here are gonna talk about product. And the journey to making products, not entrepreneurship, not this big like funding, VC, all these other fancy toys or fancy topics. It's very hands-on. We're gonna screen share, look at the same screen together or something, and basically go to producthunt.com and just geek out about products. What were some cool products that were launched this week? And it was very low key. And what happened there was over time it tended to attract the people who believed in these things, who believed in this the magical joy of building products. So we got people like, my first person is Whit Anderson, right? Believe it or not, like way before he did Bad Unicorn. And he kept showing up week after week. And then Sharath joined online virtually week after week. And then we had Ash Wesley, part of Bad Unicorn. Drew Riley, part of created Trends.vc. Their creations came, of course, through the mastermind, but the people came first, and I think that's what it is about. Even at ODNC, I feel the same way that I felt about 0 to 1 2018, that we're currently talking and chatting with the future Drews, the future Wit, the future, KPs, because they're in it right now for the community. Over time, their creations will see popularity and like it'll become a big phenomenon. But in the early days, it'll look like just a dinner table conversation.
Amazing. And I suppose the thing to sort of take out of that is about having a vision, about niching yourself and trusting that your passion, your niche, your vision, if you keep talking about it enough, then the people who believe the same thing as you will come to you.
And that is building public too.
Yes.
That's exactly, I don't know if you have a question in there for me there, but that's exactly how I felt I built a community or a movement around building public. I feel like essentially marketing is magnetism. Great marketing is not outbound. Great marketing is inbound. You welcome people who believe in the things you believe in. But so it starts with putting out stuff that you believe in as content, or your values as content. So I believe in a positive sum environment. I believe that there can be 3 number ones of a competition. I don't believe in zero sum. I don't believe like people are supposed to be on ranking boards or crap like that. And I believe that there can be multiple founders winning in any market. So that extends to most of my content, most of my tweets, most of my podcasts, most of my ideology. Wherever I go, I carry that mindset. And so it's a bat signal that I'm putting out in everything that I do. So it attracts other people who believe in the same things over the internet. And back to do, because I had to write letters to every city. But now I can just write a tweet, and then that tweet takes care, the algorithm takes care of the message, and people like you come into my orbit. And if they like what I'm trying to do or I'm trying to say, they'll stay around, right? So to me, building public is like an obvious thing to do for any founder in 2021, or a VC or an investor or anybody, any creator, in fact, because what it tends to do is it tends to convert all of your outbound tasks that you had to do back in the day. It converts them into inbound. People want to be part of ODNC. Like, it's crazy how we're seeing after we had the demo day. I don't know if you've seen the demo day.
Yeah.
We are people coming in saying like, we believe in what you believe, KP. We get it now, right? But in the early days, you're not going to get tons. So you got to be patient. And a lot of this is about conviction and patience. And so just like with 0 to 1, for a whole 3-4 months, we had just Wit and me staring at each other every Friday. That's 0 to 1. And so ODNC 1 for a long time was just a few tens of us, or a few. And then now there's like insane demand for the second cohort. So it takes time.
So that sort of brings me on to a slightly different question then about the taking time, but also always building something. And this is a question that's been sort of boggling my mind for a little while is it better to build and launch fast multiple projects, or to build and launch and then spend your time seeing if that project will get traction? And I'm interested to hear your perspective on this.
My perspective on that is I look at projects as an artist would look at music. And to me, in the early days, especially if you're a traditional trained artist, right, you've went through all the crap of music growing up, and you already sound better. You already know how to create tunes that are relevant. But a lot of us are coming in fresh and hot into this tech market, right? Or into this world of entrepreneurship. So we have no prior experience to rely on. we know what works. We know the big names like Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, but that's like saying I know Drake and I don't know, Snoop Dogg, and maybe I can rap too. I don't know. You have to test it, and the first 100 raps are gonna look and sound like shit. So if you're not willing to put up with your own imperfections, can you expect the community to put up with your imperfections, right? So the reason I did a lot of early projects was to get out the bad ideas out of my system quickly. And I was a nobody in 2018. I was not on a podcast like this, so nobody cared. It was a blessing in disguise. Nobody gave a crap. And the 5-6 people who gave a crap told me where to improve. KP, here's the 3 areas you can improve. Here's the landing page copy. Like, check out Harry Joy's landing page tips. Check out Rob Hobbs' landing page books. And so, okay, got better. Over time, a lot of my crap never saw the light, and it's okay. And now I feel like I've sort of have this compound interest advantage where I already have a lot of these lessons internalized. So it's like a sculptor. A sculptor, in the early days, the stone's going to make all these sounds. It's just going to look ugly. But if you meet a seasoned sculptor, he has an epic unfair advantage that he built over years, that he can just like take something that's, not great and then turn it into some kind of a meaningful object. So I see the same thing with builders and founders too. In my view, again, this could be just my personal one-person opinion, but you got to put out a lot of the crap that you think, is going to help you to make it feel better. And over time, this compounds, and you just become a much more prolific creator, podcaster, whatever you want to call it, like Joe Rogan, podcaster, right? Like he built thousands of episodes. Anybody we admire in life, like Obama, like his first rally was probably like crap. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's true, but like probably where he was like stuttering, or he was like, over time you get better and better, and it feels so seamless. So I think my lesson is that, at least what I've learned, is it takes a ton of iterations to get better at something that you care about. So you might as well just keep shipping, keep building, and have very meager and low modest expectations, which I did have in the beginning, very low expectations. And once you get to a certain point, you will discover what you're strong at, and people will tell you. And maybe then you can do your masterpiece projects. I actually still have a lot of projects in my Notion that I call them my masterpieces, like my, B2C companies that I want to start. But I couldn't have started with them when I was like a nobody in Nocode.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, it kind of, again, brings me really nicely on to the next topic, which I know everybody is interested about, which is monetization. Like, how do you know when your project is ready to be monetized? Like, how do you know?
That's a good question. I think it's that was definitely a big lesson that I had, that I learned, is all of my projects, a lot of my projects, I didn't monetize them. And it was largely because I was and shy, and then felt embarrassed that if I put a pricing page and if nobody bought them, it's a verdict, it's a judgment on my personal, whatever. And it was very, very hard to break that mold that I was carrying, until I joined BeOnDeck, or until now I have friends like Sharath, who built Shout Out. I have so many friends like, Drew, Trends.vc, who are charging for money. And then now I see the mental model of like, okay, price is actually a good thing. Monetization is actually a smart thing to do from the early on. If you see some signal if you see some resonance with the community or an audience, because price to me is a proxy of priority. So if someone pays you, they're signaling to you that that particular offering is a high priority in their life at the current place where they are, which means, they're telling you through paying you the upfront, whatever, pre-sales or landing page, or just even paying you at launch, saying that, hey, I care enough about this problem that I'm willing to put some money on it, which means that's the segment of audience you need to focus on. And so you can relax a little bit and on the rest of the audience. I'm not saying ignore them, because I think everybody matters, but like relax a little bit on the other segment and prioritize these people who are willing to signal to you that they're interested. And if you don't have a pricing page, there's no way to tell which is which. So that was my big lesson, and I think I failed at this at my previous startup called Kappa, and my previous ideas where I didn't charge anybody, and I couldn't discern between people who were really interested and people who said that they were interested.
Yeah, sure. So it's almost like we need pricing for product market fit. So
Yeah,
we just need
1000%. Yeah, 1000%. And we go into it assuming they're not gonna win over everybody. And I think here's another big lesson that I learned is anything you create, you can feel that it's open. You can say that it's open for everybody, but it's only meant for a few. Over time, you realize that it's actually only meant for a few, and those few you have to discern among. You have to sift for them among like hundreds of thousands of users, and that's why pricing is important.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, KP, for joining us today on Launch No Code podcast. It was an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
Great. Well, so for all of you that have tuned into the live stream, KP does have to dash off. He has a hard sort of end in the next 5 minutes. So if anyone has any questions, please do write in and ask them. If not, I do have a couple saved up from people who have asked me questions before the session. But you guys, as you're live watching, you do get priority. So while you guys are asking, I will go to my previous asked questions from my Twitter. So first of all, KP Toby says hi, and he told me to say hi to you. I don't know if that means anything to you.
Yeah, of course it does. Get some food, Toby. He's the new dad, so he should not be on podcast. Get him off. Just kidding.
Yeah. So that was the first one, and the second one was actually a question from a friend of mine who asks, now that there are so many more tools than there used to be, how on earth does somebody who is new to the space go about navigating where to start?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it boils down to focusing less on the tools. I think I sort of answered this at the beginning. Like it's focusing way more on your personal goals, and basically asking yourself and saying like, okay, there's all these great things, all these great tools and technologies, but what do I really want to pursue? So if what you want to pursue is basically in superficial, high level TLDR about every tool, then spend the next 2 months checking out webinars, sales pitches or tutorials of all the tools, and you will have a fair understanding of where everything fits in the grander no-code landscape. But if your personal goal is, I want to be able to build and ship something, have a portfolio that I can use in my job hunts, a job search, or I can use it to maybe become a founder one day, then start with like your easiest idea, like the idea that would take the smallest amount of lift, and just focus on building it and talking about it with users, which is either on Twitter, Product Hunt, Clubhouse, whatever, and co-build with them, and then ship it, and have a very set deadline. Like, I'm going to ship this in 2 weeks, whatever is comfortable. Like, pick something and make it up, but make sure that you have that set deadline, because it's a forcing function, and from there work backwards and build that muscle of daily building and shipping and learning. So that's, again, it depends. Like I said, like there's no right or wrong answer. Some people want to explore tools and technologies. That's pretty cool. But some people want to build a portfolio or build apps. That's pretty cool. Some people want to say, I want to do customer discovery, spend time understanding customers, talking with them, and then I'll just build one tool. That's fine too.
Yeah, great. I mean, there is another question that's coming from the audience, but I actually have a confession. I messed up. I actually forgot to ask you a question for the podcast. So I'm going to ask that now, and I'm just going to say a shout out to the producer. If we could just chop this question that I'm going to ask into the recording when it goes out, that would be awesome. So KP, before you go, could you tell us where can people find you, follow you, and look at your projects?
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter. I am at thisiskp_, or you can go to my website, thisiskp.com. Then there's a projects tab there. You can see my projects, or you could join one of our future cohorts at OnDeck Nocode. It is beondeck.com/Nocode. So yeah.
Awesome. Right. So now back to the question. So you guys, this is how podcasting really works. Sometimes we mess up and we have to correct things. So we have
the true build in public fashion, right? Yeah.
Yeah, true build in public. This is the uncut version.
There you go.
So apologies if I say your name wrong. I want to say Lillian or Lulian. Or yes, I think that's right. Said, what are your recommendations about building an MVP with no-code tools? So any thoughts on minimal viable products and no-code tools?
Was the question more so like what tools would I pick if I was building an MVP? Because it's very unique and case by case basis based on what kind of product it is. B2B or B2C is different. Mm-hmm. But if it's more so about the MVP mindset, I think that would be a different answer.
I think it's more specifically related to no-code tools. So I think it's quite a broad question. So I appreciate that you might need to refine this a little bit. But in terms of recommendations about building an MVP with no-code tools, I suppose the first question is, would you recommend that people give it a go?
Yeah, for sure.
And then maybe what's the process? So let's say you've got an MVP in mind.
Right.
You've got an idea. What's the next step in that process for builders? Like, what should they do next?
I would look at, so basically you have to switch from what I call like platform thinking to product thinking. So platform thinking is like saying, okay, I have, here's my idea. I want it to look like Airbnb. It's like Airbnb for, I don't know, for X, another niche, right? And so that's platform thinking. And then thinking about, okay, here's the supply, here's demand, here's how they're going to interact. But product thinking is essentially like putting on the product builder, a product creator hat and saying, okay, how does the UX of this look like? Not designing it, but just like roughly having an understanding of, oh, there has to be a marketplace. There has to be a login. There has to be an authentication part of this, and there has to be a feed, like you see a feed on Twitter, or you see a feed on Zillow or Airbnb, whatever, and then there has to be a personalization, like my account, my feed part. So basically, breaking the platform down into mini features, and then thinking about what would be a no-code tool that can cater to these features, and applying lean thinking and lean principles. So you're saying, okay, I don't need to recreate the whole thing. I don't need to have 7 features right off the gate. What would be one killer feature that I can put in, and what no-code tool would fit the bill? In many cases, I would basically do a lot of things manually in the beginning without even having to code or no code. So I would recreate, so when I built Kappa, it was supposed to be a matchmaking tool. And what I noticed was rather than trying to recreate this matchmaking on Bubble, I did this using Airtable when I was the matchmaker. I had a column of people on one side, the other column was the other side who wanted to meet with each other, and then I manually, send Zoom links to each other. So this helps you understand the workflows, and it will teach you how to design a product with no friction, and then use no-code tools in the journey. So that's sort of like my specific answer to a very broad question.
I mean, that's a great answer. And KP, I know we've already almost run over we have run over your time now, just to let you know. So I will have to say goodbye to you now, just so you can get off to your next meeting. But thanks so much for coming on. It's just been an amazing discussion, and I look forward to talking to you a lot more about a lot more things.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and I enjoyed your questions. Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.